So I'm going to give my presentation about addiction and me and how addiction has affected my life. So today I want to start off with a little story about addiction and how it's affected me. So growing up, I've had a few family members who have struggled with addiction, and a few of them have died. I've actually had a cousin who overdosed and died, another cousin who was very much so deep into her addiction that she committed suicide, and then I've also had family members of mine that have OD'd, but then they've come back and they have struggled, but I've also had family members who have not struggled. So I want to talk to you today about my aunt. Now, I was about 10 or 11 years old when I first saw the signs of addiction in my family and how it affected my life. So about that time, I was in elementary school, going into middle school, and my aunt, her fiance, his name was Dave, he actually overdosed and died. He had struggled with a problem of heroin and all of the harder drugs that it entails, whereas my aunt was what I like to call in the middle ground and wasn't really messing with such things like heroin, shooting up, and cocaine and things. So my uncle actually OD'd the night before he was supposed to go into rehab. They found him the next morning with a needle in his hand and it's still in his arm. So needless to say, that sent my aunt into a downward spiral for about a year until the unexpected death of my grandma. Now, when my grandma died, she decided that enough was enough. She had lost too much and she needed to get clean and get better and healthier for her kids. During this downward spiral, she started doing harder drugs than she did before, but she did not do the heroin that had killed my uncle a year earlier. So fast forward now, 10-ish years, she's clean, she is sober, and she's healthy. She works the program. She has helped others who have gone through her same struggles, and she has relapsed every now and then, but I like to call them minor relapses, as something as she smokes some weed as opposed to just popping pills and getting super high. But she has come back from those. She's healthy, her family's healthy, her relationships are healthy. So during that time, I also had to take the responsibility for my little cousin Jake during my aunt's downward spiral. So he was, I believe, 1 or 2 years old at the time. And just some background information, he is diagnosed with autism, cerebral palsy, and he's got other physical abnormalities. So those in and of themselves is a lot for anyone to take care of. But me at the time, being 11 years old, was actually a lot. Since I was the oldest grandchild and I was at my grandparents' house a lot, that was actually where my aunt lived with my cousins, I was the one taking care of Jake. So I remember I had to change his diapers sometimes. I had to make sure he was fed. I had to give him a bath. I had to calm him when he was having what you would call now as being sensory overloaded. But however, at the time, he was not diagnosed with autism, but they were aware that something was wrong. So the responsibility I took from that and having to take care of him while my aunt was not in a healthy state of mind or in a healthy place in her life, that taught me a lot. It taught me how to be who I am today, and it taught me a lot of responsibilities and things that I know and I hold dear to my heart. I was taught that at a young age. So fast forward to high school, and I had vowed to not do anything harder than alcohol when I was in high school. They say alcohol isn't a drug, but alcohol is technically a drug. So I vowed to only drink. I said I wasn't going to smoke. I said I wasn't going to try anything. Well, I did, and I held up to that. And even now in college, I just drank. So my junior year of high school, there was a girl, her name was Erin, and she had graduated the previous spring. She was at a party at around YSU's campus, and she had a cocktail of drugs in her system. I know for sure that she had heroin, cocaine, and some pills. She was at this party, and she was with some people, just, you'd call your party people, not your actual friends. Well, she had passed out and become unconscious, and what they did was they dropped her off at the emergency room, but they didn't go in and tell the doctors and nurses what she had taken. They didn't tell her what was going on. They instead kicked her out of the car, essentially, at the emergency room door. I believe she was in a coma for a few days, and she died shortly thereafter. That triggered something called the Yes Fest at our school. Her family wanted to do something good, and so they started this Yes Fest, and it's to promote good things, to promote positive things. So these positive things were like joining clubs and participating in athletics and saying yes to all the positive things and building peer supports and relationships, and saying no to the negative things like alcohol and drugs and all of those negative things that can cause you to ruin your life and make some decisions you otherwise wouldn't do. So with my stories, with my aunt's story, with Erin's story, and what has come of the story of Erin, the Yes Fest that my high school did, these are all things that happened as a result of an addiction of some sort, or as a result of making a bad choice and becoming hooked to a drug. So when the Webster's Merriam Dictionary defines it, it says, addiction is the compulsive need for and use of a habit-forming substance, an example, heroin. And when you look at that definition and the stories I told throughout this presentation so far, everything was negative up until the positive, what came out positive of Erin's death, which was the Yes Fest. I don't like looking at those who struggle with addiction as being negative, and I don't like placing that negative connotation on them, because at the end of the day, they are people who struggle and make decisions, and I think that one thing we can do as a society is to stand by those who are struggling. And I'm not saying you have to go be a best friend or someone who's an addict, be their best friend and do all this and that with them. I'm just saying, have an open mind when you look at addicts and who they are, and don't be so quick to judge. And also be more willing to help people. And if you see someone struggling, don't just ignore it and say, oh, somebody else will take care of it, because what if somebody else doesn't take care of it? That was on you. So I just wanted to leave you guys with that. And with that, I am finished.